Welcome, everybody. This is our Clarktoberfest panel webinar on the first year experience. My name is Joelle. I am a fifth year student and a campus visit coordinator for Clark University undergraduate admissions. So I'm responsible for a lot of, like my name suggests, coordinating campus visits and all things undergrad admissions related. With me, I have some awesome panelists. They work as Clark ambassadors for our undergraduate office, and they all represent really unique areas that relate to the first year experience. So I won't introduce them. I will start with Sovia, let her introduce herself, and we'll go down the line.
Right. So hi, everyone. My name is Sobia. I am a psychology major with a management minor from East Hartford, Connecticut. I am a junior, and pertinent to this whole webinar is I'm a resident advisor. So I live in the halls. I'm in a leadership position, and this is my second year being a resident advisor. I also have a couple of jobs on campus, and I work in a wellness group through our Center for Personal Growth and Development. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sovia, and we'll move on to Colleen.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Colleen. I use she, her pronouns. I am also a junior like Sobia. However, I'm not an RA. I served as a peer mentor last year during orientation, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. But other than that, I am majoring in international development and social change, and I'm minoring in law and society and sociology. And I'm from New Jersey, and I'm very excited that at least one other person in this webinar is also from New Jersey.
That's awesome. Thank you, Colleen. And then Noah.
Hi, I'm Noah, use he, him pronouns, and I'm a sophomore here at Clark from St. Louis, Missouri, and I counted 5 Midwesterners here, so we got a good crowd today. I'm a geography major here at Clark, and I'm also a current peer mentor, but I'm not being allowed to talk about that today. Instead, I'm just going to talk about what life was like for me last year when I was a first year.
All right, wonderful. So we will get started. So first we will start with Sobia is going to talk about residential life and housing and all things being an RA.
Yeah, so as I just said, I've been a resident advisor for 2 years, and I lived on campus for 1 year. And I'm here to talk about what we do in res life in general. Just for a brief update, and just so you're aware, residential life and housing oversees kind of 2 big things: living in the dorms and on campus, and also like meal plans. But as an RA, we do a couple of different things in the halls. So the first big one that I love doing is we host events. So as you can see to the left, the yellow picture is an event I did this semester while being in Dodd, which is our female identifying dorm. So what I did was I hosted where I told people to email me, and I would come to the room and take a picture of them in their doorway, following COVID guidelines, with something that represented a part of their identity. So a lot of people did flags, or they did stuffed animals, or they took a picture with their roommate. And the hope was that they would put it on their door, and people around Dodd could walk around and get to know all of the other residents, which was really great. And I was hoping that it'd build community, which is my next bullet point. So by RAs hosting all of these different events and hosting a lot of socials, we hope to really build community within the halls. I know for my first year, both living on campus and also being a resident advisor in a first year building last year, community is such a big aspect of living in the halls. My first year, I was friends with half of my floor. We would have a lot of fun, Nerf fights. We'd stay up till 2 a.m. together sitting in the kitchen. And I saw that a lot as an RA now, a lot of people like to spend time with their friends in the halls. And they make friends with the people closest to them. And RAs help navigate that and promote that by having door tags, so you get to know everyone's name, even if you don't meet them. But also, again, hosting a lot of social events. Like I hosted a movie night. I've done a face mask social where 50 people came in the hall before. This was last year. And also even my bulletin board. So the next picture to the left is a bulletin board I did where you could pick things out of the envelopes and do them. Some of them were academic, some of them were fun, and some of them were getting to know campus in general. So that's another great way that we build community through our bulletin boards. And then moving on, RAs are really just big resource builders. That's something that all of us love to do. We love connecting our residents with things on campus, and that encompasses a lot of different things. So Center for Personal Growth, that's our therapy option, and also does a lot of different groups. So like body image groups, as well as like students of color, they have a couple of different groups. And then RLH staff. So I'm an RA, but I have some bosses that work for Clark, and we call them pro staff. So that's hall directors. They're my boss, and there's one for each building, as well as some of the higher ups, like their bosses. And it's just great to get to know them. And if you have any housing questions or like closing questions, all of that housing and meal plan stuff, we can help you connect those dots and get you in touch with people. And then finally, involvement on campus. We help a lot of people like navigating, interacting with clubs or figuring out what cool events are on campus. A lot of people ask me when cultural clubs are having events or what clubs I'm a part of or my friends are a part of. And it feels really good to tell them all of the cool events that are happening. And sometimes we even take residents to events. I know like last year, I took a couple of my residents with me to like the gym or to like this, I think it was Eid Diwali, which is from our South Asian Student Association Club. I took a couple of residents with me. That was really fun. And then finally, we maintain building safety. And that encompasses both like physical and mental wellness and safety. That's pretty much part of why we're there. So if you look to the left, this is something I sent out to my residents actually this week, and it is a mid-year survey so I could assess how they're doing. So I can just make sure that they're doing like mentally okay and checking in. And it's a great way for me to not only let them answer it on their own time, so I'm not in their face 24/7, but it's a good way for me to like see how the floor is doing and kind of the atmosphere given COVID, and also just like transitioning to college, because I do have a couple of first years, and you know, everyone likes to make friends and socializing normally is ridiculously hard. So RAs kind of help navigate that and kind of lessen the social load. So yeah, that's all things pretty much what RAs do, and a sprinkle in of res life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sobia. RAs are, like she said, a huge resource. Another resource, we're going to move on to Colleen. It's a peer mentor position. I'll let her talk about that and kind of everything regarding orientation.
Right. So I think there are some things about Clark's orientation that are like, pretty standard. You'll get kind of your first couple of days adjusting to school, using your meal plan for the first time and going to different sessions to learn about what student life is like. But I think what makes Clark's orientation kind of different from a lot of other schools, and what gives it like an advantage in my eyes, is so orientation is kind of broken down, and all of the new incoming students are broken into groups of about 10 to 15 students, and they're assigned to one peer mentor who's like an upperclassman who's kind of like guiding the group, but there to be exactly that, balance the roles of mentor and peer. So the great thing about this is that it's not just like everybody comes in and they're like one face in a sea of like 650 new students or anything like that, but they have an opportunity to get to know at least one person in a leadership position on like a more personal level, and kind of break down those bigger materials when they're learning about Clark, whether it's academics, campus life, resources at school. They get to break those down in a smaller group and have discussions about them, and kind of just participate on a more localized level and get to know Clark in a more digestible and personal way, and try and see what things are going to be like, how Clark's going to be a good fit for them. So orientation lasts 4 days, and it's a lot of like activity going on then, and you spend a lot of time with your peer mentor group. But as of this year, the peer mentor group is actually extended into the entire semester. So all first year students are enrolled in a class that's called Clark Navigator. They get 0.25 credits for this class, which to put that in perspective, Clark classes are usually worth 1 credit for regular classes. So this is not like out of 4 credits, it's a quarter of a credit or anything like that. But that class helps them sort of continue that transition to academics in college and to living on campus or being in school in general over the course of their first semester, so that they continue getting that support throughout the semester and throughout their first couple of months. Because I don't know about anybody else who's been to college, but like I definitely was not fully adjusted after my 4-day orientation. So the navigator section is led by that same peer mentor student who was their mentor during orientation, and it's with the same small group. So you kind of keep this same cohort, and even though you don't have to be best friends with all of them, it's nice to have like one sort of consistent group of people where you keep breaking down materials with them throughout the course of your first semester. And so Noah's a peer mentor this year, so he's leading one of these sections. But the materials that they'll go over can go from anything like using on-campus resources to getting to know faculty and staff, or getting how to build relationships with your professors to self-care. And those materials are jointly prepared by Clark staff and the PM themselves. So it is like a universalized curriculum across all like 40 peer mentors, different little like discussion groups. But the curriculum is still kind of universalized. So each group meets once a week for about 50 minutes for the class section, and they'll be learning like roughly the same things, but with each individual peer mentor / groups like twist on it. And then outside of that 50-minute weekly session, first year students will also do explorations for their navigator section. They have to do 2 of these explorations per month, which is basically just like attending some kind of on-campus event. One of them has to be an academic symposium, which is just a fancy word for like office hours or maybe an academic presentation or a lecture or something like that, something that is academically enriching, and one extracurricular event. So that can be like a club event, or we actually were offering at admissions this fall tours, like campus tours, because of the pandemic, a lot of the incoming first years hadn't gotten to tour Clark before committing. So that was one of the options that they could go to for an extracurricular event. Otherwise, there's always a lot of club meetings and club stuff going on, like Sobia was talking about before, different celebrations to go to. And the first years will do a monthly write-up on those 2 explorations. So it's really kind of providing a lot of support and like a structured entry to college where you have a little bit of like a support network and you're not just like tossed into the deep end on your own.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colleen. And then finally, we're going to go to Noah to kind of follow up on a personal experience of what it was like to be a first year and go through all of these events.
Yeah, so I am a veteran first year. I have, I've been a first year. That's kind of my claim to fame on this webinar, I guess. So orientation's over. Now what? You have a whole semester ahead of you, a whole year ahead of you. And Clark builds in a number of different things and a number of different opportunities so that your first year goes beyond just existing at college. So you're actually starting to like make connections and whatnot. And the base of that, I think, is the first year intensive. So while Clark Navigator is a student taught class that goes over study skills, self-care, this Thursday I taught a section on framing conversations that Clarkies have about our neighborhood, Maine South. And so, it's student taught. I'm not an expert. Whereas the first year intensive it's a small class. It's capped at around 20 students. And the professor who teaches the class becomes your academic advisor. So it's a built-in way to develop a relationship with the person who's advising you. All of a sudden, they're not just in charge of your grade in one class, but you have to go to them for, advice about your whole college career. And these classes can be in anything. A lot of my friends who I know now were all in a class about fairy tales together. Another one of my friends was in a film class, and I always got to be the star of his films. Namely, the centerpiece film of this semester was this wonderful film about a terrible incident that Sobia would remember when, unfortunately, a student had an accident in the staircase of a residence hall. And I got to play in this first year intensive the star of that film. So the idea of a first year intensive is get out, do something bold, do something you've never done before. He's never even held a camera before, and now he's in charge of making this film. And that's really special. My first year intensive, I went for a different route. I didn't go for something that I haven't done before, but I went for something where all of my interests are aligned. So I'm a big urban geography guy. I'm big into transportation systems. And so I took a class called Discover Worcester, where every week we would pay the bus fare at the bus stop, and we'd get on the bus and we would ride it to a new place in Worcester, and we'd walk around, we'd take in the sights, we would meet with people who know about that neighborhood or who know about what we're seeing. And then we would write an essay about it, and we'd talk about it, and we'd talk about gentrification, and we'd talk about suburbanization and all these urban issues. And so my advisor then obviously was someone who knew about my academic interests and was able to help me as my advisor. So that's the first year intensive. On-campus employment is really simple. Over the summer, Clark has a resume workshop where you can submit your resume to our office, to our career advising office. I submitted mine and it got torn apart, torn to shreds. They really thought that I was, they thought I had a bit of an ego on my resume. And so it was nice to have someone be blunt with me about my resume. Right now I have 3 on-campus jobs. So it's little things like that that Clark has done that allow you to, perfect your resume and push out there for on-campus employment, which there are a number of opportunities for. In terms of exploring Worcester, Worcester's New England's second largest city, and I say that not for how big it is, but for how small it is. Worcester's a city that operates at what I like to call like a human scale. Things don't move too quickly here. They're not overwhelming. Opportunities aren't, you know, like crazy competitive. Everything is at like a very human scale. I got involved in a transportation advocacy group merely because I rode my bike to a city hall meeting one night and struck up a conversation with one of the guys who was there. And that's like a common story for Worcester, word of mouth and finding opportunities that way. Also for exploring Worcester, Worcester is a very manageable city in terms of like getting around physically. Clarkies can walk to a number of different restaurants, and that's a common first year activity. And then you can also take the bus to get to the broader Worcester area. And you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner, an unreleased bus map a friend and I have been working on that some of you might get to see if you come here to Clark next year. It will be debuted in the fall. And then having trouble adjusting, this is the second time that we've mentioned the Office of Counseling and Personal Growth. Sobia mentioned it as well. It's worth going over again, because honestly, like 70% of Clarkies use the Center for Personal Growth before they leave. Lots of students need therapy, lots of students need counseling, lots of students need discussion groups. I'm biased because my dad's a therapist, but you know, it's something that really is part of the first year experience, is understanding how you're adjusting emotionally. So that's kind of it. That's it for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. That was chock full of really good information. So now we're going to move on to the question portion. We've left a nice 25-minute chunk for you all as the audience to ask our panelists questions. I'll be monitoring the Q&A feature. Like I said earlier, please use the Q&A feature to ask questions, and I will answer as many, or not me personally, but I will have my panelists answer as many as possible. If there are at the end, if your question didn't get answered, or you're still wondering about something, you can always email admissions@clarku.edu. We are always on our emails. We always make sure to respond to questions. There are also a number of more Clarktoberfest webinars that are on very specific topics that you can definitely take a look at and see if there's maybe one that would be more tailored. But we do have some questions rolling in. Let me take a peek here. Let's see. All right, I'm going to start with one. I think this would be probably a good one for Noah to answer, but obviously Colleen and Sobia are welcome too. Are there many opportunities for outdoor recreation? Can we talk about that in Worcester?
Yeah, I love this question.
Cool.
Oh my God. So Worcester is actually a surprisingly green city. And specifically in Maine South, there are a lot of different places that students like to congregate. Actually, Clark borders a park. I think that's always worth mentioning. It seems like the most obvious thing to students that University Park is just right there. And so I don't often think of it as a recreation space as much as an extension of campus sometimes. When I bring my, hammock to the park across the street, it doesn't feel like I'm leaving campus that much. I can still access campus Wi-Fi sometimes, actually. But we have a green space that's right there. Then if you want to go a little bit farther, 10 to 15 minute walk, there's a nice lake/reservoir, Coe's Reservoir. About a 20-minute walk is Elm Park and Newton Hill. And so at each kind of layer and ring that you expand time-wise, there's a new park that you kind of unlock. And the buses can all get you there. Bikes can get you there very easily. Clarkies love to soak up the sun, whether it's on campus or in one of Worcester's many green spaces.
Awesome. Yeah, I would definitely echo that. There's a lot of ways to get involved and go outside and be, Sobia.
I also want to add that we do have a club called the Outing Club, and that takes you to a lot of different places around Worcester. I know that they go to a couple of different mountains. They take you on hikes. That's a really popular club at Clark, and transportation is provided as well. So it's a great way to meet some new people, but also explore Worcester in a part of a club. So that's a really good option.
Awesome.
What did I do?
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Let's see. Let's go to another question. Sobi, I think this would be a good one for you to answer. Let's see. Is there any international student orientation? If there is it open to students who are U.S. citizens but have lived as an international student all of their lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is an international student orientation, and it looks a little bit different compared to our to domestic student orientation. There's something called orientation leaders, and there is one specific orientation leader for that or international student orientation. There's also an international student office, and you would be working closely with them to navigate just not only coming to college but the transition. And then what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
If a student is a U.S. citizen, but they've lived as an international student for all their life.
I think that it would probably be dependent on what the international student office says. So that would be a great time. That would be a great way to like email them and get to know them. I don't see why not, because technically you were living in another country for most of your life, and you might not know it, depending on the school system there compared to United States, it might look a little different. But yeah, that's a great way to get to know the office, and I would recommend emailing them. And I just want to touch upon the fact that like RAs do know when we have international students, and we try and promote relatability as well as tailoring our resources and our interactions to help international students as well. So we're very conscious of international students as well as domestic students and making sure that both get what they need. A lot of RAs were working with international students to help them before COVID shut everything down, and we were doing a lot of check-ins. We were ensuring that our international students were doing the best that they could.
Great, thank you. Colleen, I'm going to toss this one to you. Can you talk about the faculty-student relationship at Clark? How accessible are professors, especially in the first year? Oh, Colleen, I can't, for some reason I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect, there we go.
Okay. The classic mute, unmute yourself.
Yes.
So I actually, that's like one of the things that I feel like I get most excited about at Clark is your professors are incredibly like accessible right from day one. And so, you know how Noah was talking before about the first year intensive classes? So your professor for that class is your advisor, but it also is a really small cohort. So right from the beginning, you are encouraged to talk to your professor because you have to meet with your like initial advisor right away. You have to like get to know them a little bit. And I think that really encourages students to take advantage of those opportunities for connection. So like, I think that also Clark has this really like interesting advantage of having faculty who are really, really like involved in kind of the outer world, not just like in academia. So then the small sort of class cohorts mean that a lot of students will get early on to like build relationships with their professors that will then lead to like doing research or finding like volunteering and internship opportunities from connections that they make with their professors. Aside from that, professors in general are just like pretty awesome. I'm thinking particularly right now of like one of my favorite professors who was one of my sociology professors last year before I decided I was going to be a social minor or anything like that. I would go to his office hours a lot when I had questions about the class or about the assignments that we were working on. And I got to know him pretty well, pretty quickly. And now he's actually my advisor, but I also just like really enjoyed chatting with him and like getting to know him. Or even the faculty that you don't have tend to be pretty willing to, that you don't have like as your professor, tend to be pretty willing to work with and help out students. My major advisor, I've never had her for a class. I just reached out to her when I realized that the work that she's done and her like areas of academic interest really aligned with mine. And I've still been able to get to know her pretty well, like over the last year or so, even though I've never even had her in class. She was like giving me her daughter's email address to send her information about like the internship that I'm doing right now and stuff. So it really is easy to build those kinds of relationships because Clark professors are working with small cohorts, and they're also really invested in their students. They are used to working with Clarkies who typically tend to be passionate about a lot of things and really willing to work to make things happen. So I would say that like across the board, I've always really felt like my professors believed in me and really like cared about me being able to follow through and feel good about the work that I was doing. And I think that that's incredibly powerful. I think that it is pretty unique to Clark, and yeah, just good reviews all around for that. I love my professors.
Do either Sobia or Noah, you have anything to add to that? Maybe any personal experiences with professors? No pressure. Yeah, Sobia? Cool.
Okay, I have a professor who I love. It was my professor for my printmaking class, my first semester, first year. I love this woman. I still know her. We still see each other. We still eat lunch together. And because of her, like, I got an on-campus job as being a proctor in the print studio. She's really nice. Her name is Jan Johnson. So if you like art, please take the class. Or if you need your aesthetics perspective, which is like a graduation requirement, please take it with her. I've gotten all of my best friends to take her class. She's a really great woman. She gives great advice. She helped me with a lot of my projects in the class, and she overall just like encouraged risk. She encouraged us to take risks in the class. She wanted us to try different things. And it was art, and it was really great to know that, like, despite the art piece maybe not looking the best, the fact that I would get rewarded for trying something new and different really felt good. And I felt, like Colleen said, completely like that I had a professor that believed in my abilities and would support me in really what I wanted to do. I love her so much.
Awesome. Yeah, professors are really great here. I definitely want to echo that. I just want to answer kind of a blanket question because I've just been getting a lot of this type of question. So when you come into Clark, you come in undecided. You don't need to pick a major. That is not something that we require you to do. Your first year intensive can be any kind of class. We have 30 to 40 different first year intensives. They can have absolutely nothing to do with what you're interested in. They can be what you're interested in. It is really up to you. And the professor of that first year intensive, like Noah said, becomes your advisor. And they are probably most likely not going to be in the major that you declare. They're really just there as a resource. And they're first year intensive professors specifically are trained understanding the idea of the first year student. So they understand how to help first years in a way that maybe other professors might not. So once you are, by the end of your sophomore year, you have to declare your major. And once you do that, that's when you get an advisor who's in that major. So that is, you can declare, I believe the earliest, actually, I'm not sure. Do any of you know when the earliest is that you can declare your major? I think it's at least, you have to be at least through a semester at Clark, I
Yeah,
would say.
I think you can come in like saying that you want to be a psych major and whatnot, and you would get like a psych advisor. And you could also take a first year intensive that is in, like, example, like you could take a psych first year intensive. But a lot of people do it honestly like the second semester of their first year or like throughout their sophomore year. So I declared like very last minute my sophomore year last year. So they're really flexible about it, really nice. They really want you to find what you really love. And I know people that have literally changed all the way up until like end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year. So you can do what you really want.
Yeah, it's very flexible. This is a question I am going to throw to all of you because I think it's a really, really good one. What is one thing you wish you knew your first year? Noah, do you want to start? Or we can take a second to think about it because that might be a... That's a hard, I can't even remember being a first year, so I'm glad I've got some good panelists.
Yeah, I think actually for me, the more I think about it, it's pretty obvious. I wish I knew to go to office hours. The first time I ever attended office hours was in my second semester.
Noah, can you explain what that means, office hours, just for people that might not know?
Yeah, I was gonna go around to that. So generally the concept of office hours is in most classes at Clark, you have a professor. Sometimes you have a TA, but I'll focus on a class where I just have a professor. That professor has structured times throughout the week when they meet with us and they lecture. But they also set aside time in their week where they say, okay, I'm going to devote this time to this class, but it's not a required lecture. Instead, I'm in my office for my office hours. And so, my professor in my peace studies class would just make himself a pot of tea and he'd sit in his office between 2 and 4 on Wednesdays and he'd do work when nobody was there, but people would trickle in from our class and they'd ask him questions. And sometimes I'd be in there with people who I didn't know and we'd both be talking to him. And sometimes someone would want some privacy to talk about their grade or something like that. But essentially it's the idea that the professor sets aside time at another point in the week to talk to students, to help students out. And I didn't take advantage of this my first semester the way I should have. And I realized second semester that when you go to office hours, your relationship with a high school teacher and your relationship with a college professor are very different. And your professors are, like, in my experience, much more willing to sit down with you at office hours and talk about your future instead of just talking about the class, and really getting to know the professor, getting to know the research they do, the work they do outside, and them getting to know what you're interested in is really valuable. So I wish I had done that with my first semester professors, but now I go to lots of office hours and I'm very happy.
Awesome. Colleen, yeah, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I have two. One is small, one is big. The small one is it's very, very okay to like go to and try out a lot of different clubs for things that are 100% out of your wheelhouse and that you never would have seen yourself doing. They don't just have to be like parallel to like, oh, I did these things in high school and these seem like the college equivalent, so I'll try that. Like you can't, it is totally okay to branch out, and no one is going to judge you for it. It's like really kind of an exciting thing to be able to do. And then my bigger one is that I kind of just wish that I had known a little bit earlier, like the degree to which Clark students are able to sort of like harness their own college path and like really like build the direction that they're going in. Because I think, you know, I looked a lot, like when I first came in, I really like searched for existing structure and like tried to figure out, okay, how am I gonna like maneuver myself around these things instead of doing as many things like doing an independent study, which is like where you can take a semester and just say, okay, I want to have a faculty advisor and focus on this topic, and I'm just going to do a bunch of like my own independent like reading up on this and learning about it and forming my own ideas that maybe aren't structured around a class or aren't like required for like my major graduation or whatever, but I'm just going to like kind of create my own like academic journey, or looking earlier on for things like research opportunities and other forms of outside the classroom learning, because I think Clark really like can foster those things really easily, but it's got to be kind of like a two-way street where students also have to be willing to like seek those things out and take advantage of them and like have that drive to pursue them. But Clark is really, really accommodating if you do want to like look for maybe less traditional learning opportunities. And I wish that I had like known that a little bit more going into my first year, so that I could have started doing those things a little bit earlier, instead of just setting out on like, okay, this is a prescribed academic path. I've been in school for 13 years and now I'm going to do more school. I'm going to do what somebody tells me to do and follow the prompt. And you don't always have to do that at Clark in particular. So I wish that I had thought about that a little bit more earlier on.
Yeah, I feel like Colleen's is pretty much mine. So I echo Colleen. Yeah, I wish I didn't get as involved, and I wish I really like, in a way, like prioritized my health and my wellness, because I definitely tried too hard to do a lot and it really was not great.
Yeah, I think those are all really, really good advice. I wish I had done all those things as well 5 years ago as a freshman. All right, I have another really good one I think is important to address. Is it easy to become involved in the community as a freshman? Any one of you can start with that. Oh, Colleen, I think I would try mute and unmute.
Like the Clark
there we go.
community.
I think I would probably say I'm going to spin it to the Worcester community, because I think that's something that can be very hard to navigate your freshman year, can seem really big and scary.
I actually have a pretty applicable anecdote about that, if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's no showing up to a city hall meeting on my bike, but my first year intensive class was called Making a Difference, and it partnered with the Office of Community Engagement that is like at Clark, basically ways for Clarkies to do exactly that and get involved in different organizations and kind of volunteering opportunities in the community. So for that first year intensive class, everybody had to like have a volunteering like position at a local like community organization. So we all had to go to the community engagement fair that happens every fall semester. And what I really loved about this class is that it, you know, without this being like the explicit intent, it really showed me how to do exactly that. Like, oh, these are the tools you can use if you want to. There's a community engagement fair that happens every fall semester. Early on in the first couple of weeks, and a bunch of different organizations from around Worcester and the surrounding area come and set up tables and meet with students for a couple of hours. You can just kind of wander in and out, and try and find something that maybe really resonates with you, or you really like the people who work there, or it's a cause that you're really passionate about. So I went in just knowing, okay, I work as a camp counselor all summer, so I maybe don't want to do something that's like an after school program, because I've like been doing that a lot. So from that, I wound up starting volunteering at a food pantry that's just about a 10-minute walk down Main Street, because I didn't have a car at that point either. So I needed to find something that was like a good fit for me transportation wise in the winter. And I would work there every Monday for like 2 hours. And I really got to know my supervisor and the other people who worked there, because it was also like a rehab center. So got to kind of like meet the people that were also staffing in the food pantry all the time. And then even after the class ended, I just had really, really liked working there. So I kept it up for the whole like spring semester. And I'm still in touch with my supervisor. Actually, I ran into her at the farmer's market that's by Clark like 2 weeks ago. And we're going to like catch up and grab coffee soon. And I feel like that's a pretty good testament to how easy it can be to get involved in the community if that's something that you're interested in. Whether that is, you know, going to the farmer's market, checking out local restaurants, or if it is a more official community engagement volunteering position, it's not something that's difficult to do at all if you're looking for it.
Awesome. Does anyone want to talk about the office that we have that helps you get engaged, community engagement office? I think that would be really helpful as well to talk about that.
Yeah, so in terms of the community engagement office, they are basically like Clark's connection to the opportunities that come about in Worcester. One of my really close friends works the position where she gathers all of the basically all the intel from around the city on positions that are popping up. And essentially the way it works is Clark has like a network throughout Worcester. Worcester, like I said, it's a pretty manageably sized city. So she has this big list of all of these different connections and organizations that have been screened by Clark and have been like background checked to make sure that they're safe for, you know, volunteering at, and the missions and stuff align with Clark's mission. And she keeps up communication with each of these connections. And as soon as one of them says, hey, we need this many students for this many students for that, she takes these positions and she puts them onto our online job portal, which is called Handshake. And we use the Handshake portal to manage on-campus jobs, internships in Worcester, and volunteering opportunities. And there's a wonderful way that you can sort on Handshake for things that have been posted by the Community Engagement and Volunteering Office. And so, yeah, they have kind of their hands in all different parts of Worcester, and people come to them and request, you know, volunteers, and they go to other organizations and request volunteers. And all of it, like I said, is organized so that it's safe and productive. And Clark has set out these opportunities specifically for Clark students.
Yeah, that's a really great way to describe them. We also offer, there's a club fair that happens, there is a club fair, but there's a community involvement fair as well that typically happens, of course, not right now with all of the COVID guidelines, unfortunately, but during a normal year, we would have a community involvement fair at the beginning of the fall semester. That's where organizations from all around Worcester come and table in one of our big halls in the university center, and students they're there for, you know, a few hours. Students walk around, they, you know, get information about community service opportunities. There's no community service like requirement at Clark, but it is such a part of the culture to be involved in community. Of course, you don't have to, but there's so many opportunities in Worcester to be a part. I definitely took advantage of that in my undergrad. I know all of my panelists have as well. It's something that is a really huge part of being a Clark student. So there are a lot of opportunities. And Noah, yes, you'd like to add something?
Yeah, for my whole first semester, I thought there was a community volunteering requirement.
Really?
Yeah, because everyone volunteers.
It's true. It is true.
You know.
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of it. And Clark makes it very easy with the office, and also, you know, having those organizations actually just come and table and talk about what they do. All right. There's some really good ones. I'll probably answer 2 more questions, maybe a few more, but let's see. So many good questions. I apologize for not being able to. Sobia, could you answer kind of briefly just the way that freshmen our first years are housed, what that looks like, the different res halls, and how they like differ, especially in terms of like if students are grouped in any particular way.
Yes, sorry, it's a little noisy. So basically, we have 5 different resident halls on campus, one of which is a female-only identifying dorm, and that's the dorm that I live in. And students are usually matched up through a survey that they can fill out, and they're handpicked together by ResLife, which is really unique to Clark. But a lot of people tend to just find their roommates on like Facebook, or I had people last year find each other by Discord, which was really funny. I know, no, it's great. If you don't know what Discord, it's really just for gamers, which is really good. So yeah, really, it's like when you first apply and you get accepted and you're filling out all your stuff, you kind of pick which dorm that you want. We call them resident halls. You pick which resident hall that you want. And you can pick a single, double, triple. Singles are usually medical singles. So we try to really put that together. But a lot of the time it's really traditional doubles. But we do have some suite style living, which is really great, mostly for upperclassmen housing. But a couple of the first year dorms have some really fun suites, and it's a really great time. Noah lived in a suite because he was my resident my first year as a RA, which is why I knew about the video thing that he was talking about exactly, because I saw them filming it.
Yeah, that's a really great overview. And just specifically for the question that's being asked, there's no like themed housing depending on like majors or anything. It's just about, it's usually just by class, what class you're in. And then the only exception would be Dodd, like Sobia said, which it's anyone from first year to senior can live in Dodd as long as they're female identifying. So that's kind of a unique outlier as a house. But then all of the other, they're very typical ResLife, like experiences in all of the other dorms. Let's see. I think one good one, another one, they're all very good questions, but someone's asking, what would you say was the biggest hurdle when attending Clark your first year? And what did you do to combat that? I'll give you guys a second to think on it. I can start while you guys are thinking for sure. I'll get the cogs working. I'm retired now from undergrad, but I can think about that. I think for me the biggest thing my first year was just asking for help. Like I really struggled with asking for help. I was a very like lone wolf type of person. I really just try to do everything myself, and like that is not the culture here. You do not have to do everything yourself. It took me the whole year to learn that professors like want you to ask questions and want you to ask them for help, that your advisors want you to go to their office and talk to them. And I really wish, I think to combat that, in my spring semester, I was a student athlete, and that was, it was hard. I had a lot more time in the spring because I was a fall athlete. And honestly, that was worse. I was struggling with managing things because I had more time to myself. And that can be a big hurdle as well, is learning to manage all this like new time that you have to yourself. So what I did to manage it was I just started I talked to my RA. Snaps to, yeah, I lived in Dodd as well my first year. I talked to my RA. She was wonderful. And she just pointed me in the resources and said, talk to your advisor, talk to your first year intensive advisor. Like, they're there for you. And I started with that, and eventually just did small things to build up the courage to talk to people and ask for help. And I talked to my coach as well. She was a really great resource. So I just kind of just tried to, push myself in small ways and then in bigger ways to talk to people. Anyone else? Anyone thinking about hurdles they had their first year?
I mean, you really took mine.
Did I? Oh no.
That's definitely what I was going to say. The college admissions process forces all of us. It forces you to really look inward on your own accomplishments and project them outwards. That's like all of applying for college and marketing yourself to schools. And it's tough to then make the transition to come into college. I said the thing about my resume getting torn to shreds. Because the person said I had a big head, and my achievements weren't as much as I thought they were. And so, it's not, coming to college is not always going to be a humbling experience for everyone. But I think for a lot of people, it is learning how to have a support system and how to exit the mindset like you said, the lone wolf mindset, and the competitive mindset, and, you know, acclimate into Clark's mindset, which is everyone helps each other. It's collaborative. It's more about, you know, everyone moving towards their academic goals, and helping each other in them and sharing in knowledge, than high school was, for sure. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd say my thing was a little bit more personal and a little bit less structural, which is just that, like, it took me a little while to find my people, and I didn't like that at first. So I tried to sort of like push down parts of myself that I wasn't as proud of or had a little bit more difficulty accepting, and just kind of like pretended they weren't there, which I'm all for, like personal growth and making changes and, like, you know, making yourself like a person that you're more proud of. But don't try to tell yourself that people who aren't the right fit for you will be the right fit for you if you change the way you're shaped. That's not how it works. And I think that having patience in that department was challenging for me, and not having like an immediate, like, I couldn't, not finding my people right away, and feeling like all of my friends who were posting on Instagram with like their new best friends at their schools had all like struck gold and I hadn't found it yet. These things take time. Good things always do, but don't sacrifice yourself while you're waiting.
I love that. Thank you, Colleen. That's super helpful. Sylvia, anything think about?
Yeah, I feel like mine is pretty much the friend one and everything that's said. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely like came in with ACE, but yeah, which is our early pre-orientation program for first generation indoor students of color. But finding like really genuine friends took me a bit, but I'm really happy with what I have now.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are just about out of time. I am going to send everyone on their way. Thank you to everyone who attended. I really appreciate, there were about 90 people that came and watched. So thank you so much. I hope that was informative. I know our panelists did a wonderful job. So thank you to Sylvia, Colleen, and Noah. You guys were wonderful, amazing resources. Like I said, if you've got any more questions, please email admissions@clarku.edu. But just to point you in the direction, we do have some really amazing, other amazing Clarktoberfest webinars coming up that had to do with some questions that I saw pop up. We have a whole Clarktoberfest webinar on international students at Clark. That's Wednesday, October 21st from 9 to 9:45 a.m. We also have one that's called Worcester, a college city. So that's all about what it's like to be in Worcester and be a college student in Worcester. That's Monday, October 26th. We have a whole one dedicated to BIPOC and first gen communities. So please check that one out as well. If you fall into either of those identities, that is Sunday, October 25th in the afternoon. We have one on athletics. We've got one on research. And then we finish up with one called Ask a Clarkie, where you just get a whole 45 minutes to ask the Clarkie panelists that are on everything you want to know. And that is Friday, October 30th. So please tune into those if you can. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. This webinar will be up. It has been recorded, so that will show up on our Clarktoberfest webinar webpage, so you can watch this back or send it to anybody if you would like to. All right, I'm going to end it now. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the weekend.